This is a production of the Gold Arrow Podcast Network.
Hello, and welcome to the Gold Arrow Camp Podcast, a podcast for friends of Gold Arrow Camp. Throughout the year, we join you to bring your day some of what makes Gold Arrow special. Our goal is to help you have fun, make friends, and grow throughout the year, not just when you're at GAC. Since we can't get together in real life, we gather here, around the virtual campfire. We have some of your favorite parts of morning assembly. We also have interviews with experienced campers and some of your favorite counselors. We know it's a lot of fun and we're glad you joined us. This is episode 54. We have a second generation staff member on the show. It's Dobby. Today I have Dobby on the show. Dobby has a really great history with camp. In fact, her dad worked at camp. He was a GC back in the Manny Vezie era. She grew up coming to a cabin by Willow on Huntington Lake. She was at a GAC meal when she was 6 months old. She was a GAC camper growing up. And then she came back while she was in college and worked for us as a GC. I really loved talking to Dobby about making memories at camp and what that looks like and has looked like for her. She and I also discovered that we have a shared memory from camp that we didn't know we were both at. So that was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy this chat as much as I did. Here she is. It's Dobby. Oh, welcome to the podcast, Dobby. Dobby, what's up?
Hey, Soy.
So for those people who might be confused, might think that I have pulled in a house elf, maybe perhaps someone who has been making delightful food for us in the kitchen. Could you disabuse them of that kind of idea and let them know kind of who you are, what you studied in school, what you're doing now, and kind of what you do for camp?
Yeah, of course. My name's Dobby. I am a Hufflepuff. I studied at Arizona State University, and I majored in exercise and wellness. Right now, I'm working for a nonprofit, going to schools in underserved communities and doing after-school programs for girls, getting them active in sports and just showing them that people care about them.
That sounds awesome. At camp, you were a group counselor.
Yes.
So as a group counselor, kind of what's your main focus day in and day out?
My main focus is to make sure that my campers are having a great time. They're treating each other right, just making sure that our cabin turns into this little family over the next 2 weeks that we have together.
What kind of things from being a GC have you taken to this new job you're working at, working kind of with girls and kind of after school program stuff? Like what bleeds over into that?
Probably the constant energy
Sure.
that I had at camp. You really have to bring it to whatever job. And lucky for me, I get to be this crazy adult on the playground playing games with the girls. So it's not too different from GAC, and I get to fill buckets.
That's awesome.
That's all.
So really, you're taking a tiny chunk of camp to the end of the school day every day, is what you're telling me.
Of course, yeah.
So you found a really good gig, because I think we'd all like to do that. This is, or was, I suppose, summer number 8 for you. I looked back. I looked back through our records, and I think your first summer was 2005. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, that sounds about right. And my last year as a camper was 2010, 2011?
So
One of the two.
I think one of the things that happens when you're at camp for a long time is the changes seem small, and so it doesn't seem like it ever changes. But people who come back after they've been away are like, oh, everything has changed. The place is the same and the cabins are the same, but lots of things change. So what kind of changes did you see take place since 2005?
My goodness, so much has changed physically about the camp.
Sure.
The horses aren't right in smack in the middle of camp where we all get a big whiff of them.
It's a big benefit to move the horses. We smell much less agricultural now.
I think a change that I really liked was implementing the wows.
Sure.
I don't think we had that. I think we had random announcements at the end of morning assembly.
We did.
That people could just scream out if they were called on. But I really enjoy the wows because it lets people know that, hey, you're doing something awesome and people see that.
Yeah, I think it's a really beneficial change to both read some wows at morning assembly, but also we put that wow board up by the dining porch. So when you're going in to get breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you can see the wows. And we don't read all of them. We read like kind of Cheerio picks some, but you can read all of them if you want to. And I think it's really cool when somebody writes you a wow that other people see that. And sometimes people will say something to me about a wow before I even read it. And I'm like, what? Okay, cool. And then you see it and it kind of warms your whole day up.
Camp is just a great place where some things may not go always as planned. Like we have weather, we have different activities that may or may not be your favorite.
Yeah.
But those were always like the best stories I had from being a camper. Like the times I didn't go as right. I remember waking up on Shaver Island in rain. And Homer was like, you guys can move or you guys can sleep in the rain. Let's move over to the tent.
Do you remember waking up in the rain at Shaver? Do you remember like getting picked up that same morning? Is it that time that it rained on the island?
Yes, that was that time.
I remember being on the other side of that and waking up at camp and it was raining. And my very first thought was, oh, we have to figure out Shaver because the rain wasn't expected. It's one thing when we know it's going to rain and we can kind of set up beds underneath the dining kind of tent at Shaver and but when it's unexpected, I remember waking up and running into Monkey on my way to breakfast and we were both like, we're going to go get Shaver, right? And he was like, yes, we're going to hook the trailer up and go get Shaver. I remember that very clearly. It's wild that you remember that from the camper side.
Yeah, I was sleeping under a table where the breakfast was served. And this past summer, when my cabin was on Shaver, the Lions Girls, it rained again. So
yeah, but now you don't have to sleep under a table. We have like tents.
There's tents now.
Yeah, for that exact purpose. We literally bought those after the rainstorm you're describing from when you were a camper. And before that, I guess it didn't rain on Shaver, and so we hadn't had to deal with it. So you're a second generation camper because your dad. Well, you were a second generation camper. Now you're a second generation staff member because your dad also worked for camp. And he worked back in the day with Manny Vezie, which is, I think, kind of cool because Manny is a fairly mythical figure in my brain, at least. What's it like to work at the same place your dad worked? And it's not like you guys both worked at the same restaurant. You work at a place that's fairly unique. What's that like?
It's really special. I grew up knowing that I was going to go to Gold Arrow and that I wanted to be a staff member because my family has a cabin on the other side of the lake right by where everyone sails to Willow.
Sure.
So my first lunch at GAC was when I was 6 months old with Coach Ken Baker. And it's just really special. We talk to each other about the different stories we have because he was also a group counselor. And we have some similar aspects of what we remember, but the stories kind of stay the same in the fact that he made really great friends that he still stays in touch with. And he remembers almost all of his campers that he's had.
Yeah, I think, we talked about change at the beginning of this, and for all of the change, the core of the thing, like the relationships with people and that experience at camp, that hasn't changed.
No, it hasn't. And then every single summer, there's at least one past staff member that my dad knows that heads back up to Huntington Lake to reminisce, to try to see some people. And it turns into a group of 6 to 8 past counselors just renting a pontoon boat on the lake and reminiscing.
That's outstanding. And the best thing about that for me is that'll be you in 20 years. Like you'll do the exact same thing, I would assume.
Yes, we are on a race to see who can get their actual legitimate tenure jacket. Right now we're tied at
Are you really?
8 official years.
No, he's going to so now I need to keep an eye open for his application because he's going to look to sneak a couple years in here. I can see it.
Yeah. I have to stress the word official because I may or may not have a little.
Listen, there were clerical errors were made, and we may have awarded you a couple of years that you didn't actually experience.
That I verbally committed to 2 more.
Yeah, listen, we might have awarded you an 8-year jacket, and that's okay, is what I'm saying. What do you think, because you're a longtime camper and a longtime staff member, and you obviously have this connection from before your birth even to Gold Arrow. Now that you've reached kind of that mythical adulthood and you have a job and you're out there living a life kind of post school, looking back, what's the lasting impact of camp on your life, do you think?
The fact that you just brought up I'm an adult now is very scary. But I think what matters most to me about what camp taught me is to make the most out of every situation.
Yeah.
And take everything with a positive attitude. Because it's a choice. Like, you can either focus on the negative part of a situation, or you could focus on the positive and work through it and come out on top and just be a great person.
And I think, just to tie it back to what we talked about at the beginning, this memory of waking up on the island and it's raining and we had to pick you guys up early because it was a torrential rain. And I'll never forget driving down with the vans and the truck to get you guys in your bags. And as the boats came to the dock in still like pouring rain, you guys were like singing and laughing. And it really was this idea that, listen, you can be miserable right now, but it's not going to change the rain. So we might as well have some fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson well taken. We were talking here in the office about what do you need to let people know when they're coming to work at camp the first time? And we were talking about one of the things that you really need to prepare people for is that camp is an almost unnaturally positive place. Because sometimes people come to work for us and you can tell them, hey, that's a positive, upbeat place. But until you experience that overwhelming positivity, people don't get it.
Yeah. As a camper, I'll never forget that feeling of walking down the hill and just seeing everyone screaming and cheering and just all the smiles. And that's probably the best way to welcome someone to camp. The staff gets that welcome when they're coming down on the first day of training week or tweak. And it's awesome that the kids get it. Everyone gets that feeling when they first step foot onto camp.
Yeah. I even today, when I go up to like greet buses at the top and I come down with campers, and so like I'm with the first couple campers and we're walking down the road, I get a chill coming down into like the cheering counselors, and I literally came the other direction through them 4 minutes earlier to go meet the bus. So it really is an incredible thing, I think.
Then to kind of tie back to the shaver rain, I just remember the counselor side of it this past year. I was sitting there and all the campers got hot chocolate that morning. It was just awesome. And I was kind of telling them my part of it.
Sure.
Where, hey, I've been through the situation. I was exactly in this position. And it may not seem like it now, but you're going to be telling this story when you're 24, working at Gold Arrow on the podcast.
It is. It's one of those things that I think it connects us generation to generation, because now that means realistically there are 3 generations of people who have at least experienced your experience, because I experienced it from the staff side when you were a camper. You experienced it as a camper. And now, because you, like so many other people, come back, you've been able to share that experience with your campers, which I think is a really cool full circle kind of moment.
Oh, yeah. My dad always said that he was very jealous whenever I was up at camp and we got that 100-year storm where it rained and rained.
Right.
He was so jealous of it. And as a camper, I didn't understand. But now from the counselor side of it, it gave all of us a better chance to bond over something that happened to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, Dobby. It's time for the speed round. 5 questions we ask absolutely everybody who comes on the podcast. Here they go. Dobby, what's your favorite camp song?
Probably the Moose song.
That is a huge popular choice. Favorite item on the salad bar?
I'm going to have to go with croutons.
They're always there, and I don't blame you. People love the croutons. Favorite lip balm flavor?
Probably banana banner or berry quad.
Okay, so either banana or quad berry. Quad berry is kind of a throwback flavor, but a classic. People love it. Around the campfire at night, mallows or popcorn?
I gotta go with mallows.
Solid choice. And finally, Dobby, what's your real name? Oh no, we're all out of time. We'll have to get Dobby back on the podcast till there's her real name. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Dobby.
Thank you for having me, Soy.
In a world with far too much seriousness, far too much drama, we bring you something different. The joke of the cast.
Do you guys know what they call a group of killer whales that have learned to play instruments together? An orchestra. Today's GACspiration is one that I think we can all take to heart. In fact, I don't think it's just a GACspiration. I also think it could be a great friendship tip as well. And it's this idea that your words of encouragement could be the spark that pushes a person forward. So go out, encourage somebody. Well, friends, that does it. We've spent this time together yet again. Another episode of the Gold Arrow Camp POG-Cast is in the books and in your brain. So thankful that you join us here on the show every week. I really appreciate that. If you like the show, subscribe to it, share it with a friend, rate us and review us on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you get this podcast. We're in all of the major podcast locations. Huge thanks to Dobby for agreeing to be on the show. Had to reschedule it a couple times, and it was all my fault. She was super flexible, and she had great stories to tell as well. As always, I'm Soy, and I'll save a marshmallow for you.